There is a story from the Washington Examiner that is really important today. The New York man who shot up a Buffalo supermarket on Sunday kept no secrets about how and why he planned to murder as many blacks as possible. Of course, we know from the mainstream media that reason is he's a white supremacist Republican. However, that doesn't seem to be true. The corporate media has, from the very get-go, tried to associate him with the Republicans, say that he's a conservative, say that he got all of his training from Tucker Carlson. But, it's weird. It's weird. In the 180-page document authored by the shooter, he doesn't mention Tucker Carlson not even once. Not at all. Not at all. There is one mention of Fox News, and it's an infographic showing the top Fox News hosts such as Maria Bartiromo and Greg Gutfeld as being Jewish. He then also says Rupert Murdoch is a Christian Zionist who may have Jewish ancestry, although it's never been publicly admitted. So, another thing, Ben Shapiro is mentioned multiple times, including as an example as the rat of the Jewish people.
Oof.
So, gosh, that doesn't sound conservative to me, doesn't sound Republican, doesn't sound like he's learned anything from anybody that is on the right. Moreover, he has described himself as an ethno-nationalist and eco-fascist national socialist. He loathes libertarianism and conservatism in particular. Ask yourself, I'm quoting from him, truly, what has the modern conservative managed to conserve? Not a thing has been conserved other than corporate profits and the ever-increasing wealth of the 1% that exploit the people for their own benefit. Does that sound at all like a Republican?
He sounds like the president of the Republican Party.
He does.
Doesn't he?
Conservatism is dead, thank God. Now let's bury it and move on to something of worth. The shooter admits he's a socialist depending on the definition. Now listen to this. He wrote, worker ownership of the means of production? Well, it depends on who those workers are, their intentions, who currently owns the mean of production, their intentions, and who currently owns the state and their intentions. So in other words, if the workers are black, no, they shouldn't own that. If the government is black, no, they shouldn't be into owning all of the means of production. But if it's a white nationalist government, I'm all in. Does that sound like somebody that likes the Constitution? The diatribe implies those workers better be white Gentiles who worship Mother Earth. Now, here is where he really starts to bring in his environmentalism, which is so incredibly conservative. Green nationalism is the only true nationalism, he writes. There is no conservatism without nature. There is no nationalism without environmentalism. The natural environment of our land shaped us just as we shaped it. We are born from our lands, and our own culture was molded by those same lands. The protection and preservation of these lands is the same important as the protection and preservation of our own ideals and beliefs. For too long, we have allowed the left to co-opt the environmentalist movement and serve their own needs. By the way, you're now starting to get to who he really is. And it is something that I think this will be the only large conservative audience that has even heard about what I'm about to show you. The left has controlled all discussion regarding environmental preservation while simultaneously presiding over the continued destruction of the natural environment itself through mass immigration and uncontrolled urbanization, while offering no true solution to either issue. There is no green future with never-ending population growth. Malthusian. The ideal green world cannot exist in the world of 100 billion, 50 billion, or even 10 billion people. Continued immigration into Europe is environmental warfare and ultimately destructive to nature itself. So the guy is Malthusian. The guy is one of these old-style conservationists that say the only way to conserve is to kill people. Europe of the future is not one of concrete and steel, smog and wires, but a place of forests, lakes, mountains, and meadows. You've got to depopulate. Not a place where English is the de facto language, but a place where every European language, belief, and tradition is valued. Let me say this again. Does anybody recognize it yet? Not a place where English is the de facto language, but a place where every European language, belief, and a tradition is valued. Each nation and each ethnicity is molded by their own environment. And if they are to be protected, so must their environments. There is no traditionalism without environmentalism. This guy is a capital T traditionalist, which I have told you comes from Russia. Who has educated this guy? Most likely Alexander Dugin or one of his kind. The fascination with fascism and the environment and white supremacy and anti-Semitism, this is Germany. This is Germany. But he takes also the view that people are less important than the planet. And he said that he was killing blacks, quote, because Jews can be dealt with in time, but the high fertility replacers will destroy us now, end quote. This guy is sick, twisted, clearly a Nazi, says he's a socialist and a fascist. That is not a Republican, and you are doing grave damage, and you are causing the problem to get worse by ignoring the true problem and blaming it on Republicans. He was not radicalized by watching Fox News. He was not listening to Ben Shapiro on his way to work or anybody like me. He was most likely a fan of Alexander Dugin and a fan of the Green New Deal. What do you say? We stop trying to be armchair warriors and armchair coaches and say, you know what? Why don't we actually look at how the game was played and what the player said he was trying to do? Let's look at who this guy said he was instead of inventing something brand new. But that's not really possible. Did you see the article in Rolling Stone yesterday, the editorial written by Talia Levin? Now, she's written several articles, but the media is not connecting the dots, obviously. They are endorsing her. I don't know how she got an article into Rolling Stone. The headline yesterday, Buffalo shooter is not a lone wolf. He's a mainstream Republican. The right-wing extremists who control the modern GOP are gripped by racist delusions. The shooter is just the latest to act on it. Okay, so how can she go into this? I'm not even going to give you the article. This is the only article that she's ever written for Rolling Stone. So who is she? Well, she's a quote-unquote journalist. Okay, air quotes, journalist. And I don't mean journalist even in the new sense of journalist, you know, where it means activist, not actually journalist. She's much worse than that. Listen to her record. She has a book out, The Culture Warlords, My Journey into the Dark Web of White Supremacy. She was also fired from her job at The New Yorker as, get this, a fact checker because she called an ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, the group, neo-Nazis. She said there was one ICE person that had a neo-Nazi tattoo. It was an iron cross, she said, as the fact checker, the emblem of the Nazis. No, it actually wasn't. It was a tattoo of the guy's platoon because he was a Marine and wounded in action, which she, of course, blamed ICE. She said they targeted her for, just for being in her words, a fat Jewish feminist with a Harvard education. No, actually, you were fired from your job because the New Yorker hired you as a fact checker and you got all of the facts wrong. She even lost her professor gig at NYU. NYU canceled her class. She also is a big defender of George Soros, an article in the Washington Post. Conspiracy theories about Soros aren't just false, they're anti-Semitic. She is a huge defender of George Soros. I wonder what... Oh, I actually don't. I just saw that on her resume she worked for Media Matters. Oh, okay. So here are some of the headlines that she has written in the past. The far right continues to spread the conspiracy theory that inspired the synagogue shooter. YouTube banned Alex Jones, but it's letting white supremacist content thrive. So YouTube is also very, very right-wing and pro-white supremacy. Backlash to professor's anti-Kavanaugh tweet illustrates the content pipeline from 4chan to the Tucker Carlson show. How the Russian concept of info noise can help American outlets cover Trump. How YouTube facilitates right-wing radicalization. In drawing equivalencies between white supremacists and Antifa, media outlets obscure ideologies and impacts. She thinks Antifa is they're all heroes. A list of right-wing amplifiers of QAnon conspiracy theory. The lists include menaces to society as James Woods, Roseanne Barr, and Kurt Schilling. That's who wrote this article. She cannot hold a job. She's been fired from left-wing, massive radical organizations. And Rolling Stone puts an editorial out. Gee, I wonder why. And most likely it will be the last editorial she writes for. I mean, if she's going to keep her record going, this will be the last one she writes. And then she'll find some other organization that will play cover for her as an actual journalist. This is what you're up against. This is why you have to pay attention, because this poison is being pushed out into the mainstream by corporate media every single day. You have to know who it is and how to argue or tell your friends, no, this is who this person is. Disregard it.